really put us on the map. But of course, more on that later. Um, Currently, I am based in Quezon City already. I am one of the public engagement campaigners of Greenpeace. It's an independent environmental campaigning organization. So I usually work with communities, grassroots movements, different LGUs and organization, and of course, my favorite, the youth. It's always refreshing to work with young people because you you may get angry and frustrated about so many things, but at the end of the day, you always believe in hope and it doesn't stop there. More importantly, you take action. And aside from Greenpeace work, I'm also a climate activist or climate storyteller. So, which actually brings me here today. And for some reason, opportunities like these here and abroad always come up for me to share the climate story of my community. So, I actually count myself very blessed to be pursuing something that I really love and to do work that benefits not only me, but of course, a lot of people. Um, I'd like to share my screen. Please bear with me because I'm not very used to online stuff. Okay. Um, is the Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Is it
I can see your screen. Yeah.
is it placed perfectly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So you may ask, of course, how did I get here? How was I able to forge this path to activism? Well, to be honest, I always say that it worked the other way around. It's the path, it's the purpose that found me. Years ago, I just felt this drive to do something, but I didn't know where and how to start. The feeling of wanting to be part of something community and impact driven was so new to me because I never really thought of myself as someone who is capable of creating an impact. I come from a small town. I have no social or envi sciences background. In fact, all I wanted to do back then was to continue the small family business we started way back 2012. However, all of that changed when almost 7 years ago, on November 8th, 2013, my family and I were caught in an epic battle amidst the wind, the rain, and the 15 feet high storm surge brought by Super Typhoon Yolanda. That day left me with no choice but to witness my father slip through my grasp as he was being swallowed by the deluge. It was also the day I watched my mother die in my arms, and I was forced to make the most difficult decision of letting her go so I may live. In a span of 2 hours, just like the thousands of people in my community, I lost everything I've ever loved and known. Yolanda took away my parents, my eldest brother, my sister-in-law, and my 3-year-old nephew, leaving only me and my older brother as survivors. To this day, my father and nephew remain missing. Witnessing death taking away your family one by one, it makes you think that maybe giving up isn't bad after all. Because what is life going to be now that the people you love the most are gone? You realize that social status, material possessions, career, accomplishments, money, all these mean nothing if you don't have a family or at least someone to genuinely share it with. When the wind and rain had stopped, when the surge had receded, when the typhoon had died down and left my hometown in catastrophic ruins, everyone thought the storm was over. Little did we know that the real storm, the struggle for those of us who were left behind, was just about to begin. As my brother and I walked the streets of Tacloban, I looked at the city's mountain range. I was surprised to see that the abundant greenery was now brown and dull. Not a single tree survived the storm. Half the roads were blocked with piles of debris. The stench of death filled the humid air. Cadavers of humans and animals surrounded the city, and people looking like zombies were all over the streets, walking with no clear direction. It was as if a sheet of cloth was forcibly pulled from underneath us and left the whole city devastated. All I wanted was to go home. All I wanted was to feel the comfort and security of my family. But where do you go when your home has been washed away? What do you do when your strongest support system, your family whom you love the most, is gone? Who do
Asan
you
na yung
hold
ano?
on to?
Yung
How do you move
cutter.
forward when the future seems to be a blur?
Saan doon, Gems?
Time passed. I just wanted to leave Tacloban and never ever come back. I felt so broken and exhausted. Everything just hurt. My depression was taking its toll that it came to a point wherein I regretted my decision to choose to be alive because it meant that I had to wake up every single day with that void in my heart, with that yearning for comfort and familiarity that only my parents can ever fill. I had to wake up every single day with the uncertainties and the realization that it was all up to me now. I felt that I cannot afford to fail anymore because my family is gone. And the fear of failure made me scared to take risks. It made me unambitious and mediocre. I just wanted to run away from it all because home did not feel like home anymore. But I didn't know where to go. I've never felt so miserable in my entire life. But I needed to keep going because it was not only me who was hurting. It was not only me who was grieving the loss. I needed to stay strong for my brother, for the rest of my relatives, and for my friends. I needed to believe that somehow, someday, things will just add up and make sense, even though it seemed unimaginable. For some reason, even if it hurt, even if everywhere I go reminded me of the tragedy, I decided to stay, and I'm grateful I did. As time passed, I had the opportunity to work with fellow typhoon survivors and people who helped during the rehabilitation period. And every single day spent with them just changed my mindset. I realized that I should not limit myself on thinking about my family's security alone because I am just a small part of a bigger community. It dawned on me that Typhoon Yolanda took away everything, but it left us with nothing but stories. Stories that are way too precious and compelling to walk away from. Stories that deserve to be heard. I can no longer afford to just sit and wait for someone else to step up because the more stories of loss, grief, and pain that I discover, the more I realize that we do not deserve to live like this for the rest of our lives. And the thing that inspires me most when I listen to the different stories of my community is the ability of the human spirit to transform suffering into strength, to always end the story in hope and gratitude. Witnessing my community's resilience, despite the hell on earth we were living, ignited something within me to do more. Writing and storytelling became my tool, and more importantly, that's when healing for me began. When you are confronted with the reality of death, of loss, we are forced to find the true meaning of our existence. We begin to question our values, relationships, and even the decisions we make every day. To me, I just woke up one day and realized my community is so much more than our tragic Yolanda story. I didn't want us to be portrayed as victims forever, because we aren't. In the years that followed after Typhoon Yolanda, I've been given opportunities to speak in different platforms on behalf of people severely impacted by the climate crisis and how it violates our basic human right to a safe, decent, and dignified life. Since then, I've made it my mission to use what's left of me, my mistakes, my challenges, my vulnerabilities, turn them around and be willing to pursue something bigger than myself. To the global north, to the developed countries, the impacts of climate change is something that's going to happen in the distant future. But to us, it is the reality we are currently living and have been adapting and enduring in the past years. The climate crisis is as real as a father who has worked all his life to provide for his family, only to wake up one day and realize his livelihood has been torn apart. It is as real as a mother bearing the agony of looking for her missing husband all day and sleeping beside the dead bodies of her children at night. It is as real as a child who is looking forward to get an education only to find out his school is damaged and he can no longer study anymore. The climate crisis is as real as the thousands of families who lost their homes and livelihood, and 7 years later, they are still struggling to make ends meet with little to no food and clean water. It is real. It is as real as the thousands of survivors who lost their families, and with it, their dreams and ambitions. A year after the onslaught of Haiyan, we were anticipating the landfall of another super typhoon. And I cannot articulate how exhausting it was to feel so helpless as I waited for the damage it would bring to my city. Then I thought, is this it? Is this all we can do? To wait for another super typhoon to happen? Are we just going to record the casualties, the injured, the missing? Are we just going to wait for relief and aid from foreign countries every time we are met with catastrophes? We are a community living in a great injustice because we are least responsible for the climate crisis, but we are the ones who are gravely affected by its impacts. We do not have the luxury to deny and debate about it because we are too busy and frankly, too exhausted from surviving one catastrophe after another. My journey with climate activism just grew into something unimaginable and unexpected. It began when I met individuals and organizations from frontline communities who, despite it all, continue to emerge and fight for our basic human right to a safe environment. Here in the Philippines, there is a landmark petition filed in the year 2015 by brave Filipinos, typhoon survivors, farmers, fisherfolk, and environmental organizations to investigate the responsibility of 46 fossil fuel companies for human rights impacts resulting from climate change. The petition ordered the respondents to submit their plans on the steps they will take to eliminate, remedy, and curb climate change here in the Philippines. In December 2019, the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines announced that fossil fuel corporations can be legally and morally held liable for the climate crisis. The outcome of this petition goes beyond the Philippines and can reach every single human being alive or yet to be born. This can be a strong basis for future legal actions against big polluters and also for vulnerable communities to confront inaction by companies and governments. Indeed, when Yolanda struck, the world gained a new perspective about climate change. It is not just about warming oceans, dying polar bears, melting polar ice caps in the Arctic. When we talk about this crisis in the Philippines, especially in Tacloban, we talk about losing everything we've ever loved and worked hard for. Pictured here is me and my brother. It has become our annual tradition every 8th of November to go back to the waiting shed where we left the remains of our mother, brother, and sister-in-law. On November 2017, 4 years after Yolanda, our community didn't have a space to bring us together. So we took it upon ourselves to create one. This served as our first conscious act of inviting the discourse on space and its importance to our collective psyche. Together with friends, we organized Mga Larog, in English, What Remains, Stories a Super Typhoon Made. It's a community storytelling event to commemorate the historic tragedy. It was an intimate night of generous ears and storyteller survivors, some purging their traumas for the first time. The event manifested a solemn space for the stories that remained after the storm. Our hometown spirit was conjured, its stories told in an act of grieving together and in a pact of remembrance, the only weapon we have against revisionism and happy washing. The courage of the people I meet in this journey and what they stand for is what fuels my motivation to move forward despite the constant pendulum of hope and despair. In 2017, I was one of the activists who participated in a peaceful protest against the Norwegian government's plans for opening up new areas of oil drilling in the Arctic. I stayed on the Greenpeace Arctic Sunrise ship for almost 3 weeks and shared our climate story to the youth and Parliament of Norway. In 2018, I went on an amazing journey for a month in Europe. I was one of the volunteer activists who participated in another peaceful protest against the biggest coal power plant located in Poland. And then I was finally able to join the climate pilgrimage. It's a 1,500-kilometer walk across 6 countries over 65 days from Rome to Poland. The goal of the pilgrimage is to bring the message of Pope Francis Laudato Si. We engaged communities all over Europe to talk about climate change, how all of us coming from the different parts of the world are affected, and why collective action is important. During the walk, we slept in convents, school gymnasiums, and in homes of generous families who hosted us. When we reached Katowice, Poland, where the UN Climate Summit was being held, I was surprised and energized by the global movement, witnessing people coming from all over the world with diverse backgrounds, young and old, just reminds you how we will never be alone in this fight. I believe that the collective voice of climate impacted communities from all over the world, especially in the Philippines, is vital in the global fight for our climate because we are witnesses of extreme weather events. Our experiences, our stories, put a human face on the numbers and statistics of climate science. Pictured here is Fred de la Cruz. He is a fisherman from a climate impacted community in Bataan. Their livelihood is at stake due to the impacts of coal, while the fossil fuel industry continues to burn the future of their children. Another photo is of Krishna Ariola, one of the youth leaders behind the strong youth environmental movement in Negros. She protests against the fossil fuel industry to secure a just future for her generation. These were taken last year during our peaceful protest in front of the Shell headquarters in BGC. They are one of the biggest carbon polluters, along with ExxonMobil, Chevron, Total, Suncor, BP, and etc. We call them carbon majors. The goal of the protest was for them to respond to the people's call for accountability to the climate crisis, for they have known for decades of the catastrophic impacts of their business practices. But despite their technological and financial capacity to curb its severity, they blatantly chose profit over people's lives. In less than 2 hours into my peaceful protest, I was carted away by 40 police officers and was sent to their precinct for questioning. Few hours later, I returned to the site to deliver my open letter to Shell and told them that my community is demanding justice for the thousands of lives killed and for the hopes and dreams that will never come to fruition because of greed, apathy, and deceit that the fossil fuel industry created. When Typhoon Yolanda struck, our small city of Tacloban became known as Ground Zero, the city that became the graveyard of its own people. But we strongly refuse to be known just as hapless victims of typhoons. We are a people who have survived and decided that it is no longer enough to just adapt and endure. We have finally learned to fight for our lives and the lives of the future generation. The things that we value most are at risk, and we should be part of the movement that protects it. Our collective experience is what drives us to continue telling our stories. It became a way for us to mourn, to remember, and to heal. Now, our stories have transformed as a way for us to fight because we have realized that living a safe, decent, and dignified life is not a privilege. It is a human right. Protecting human rights from the impacts of climate change may look like a David and Goliath battle. One can just easily back down. It is not easy to be brave and stand up against a fossil fuel giant, but we cannot stay quiet while the injustice continues, where only a few profit and enrich themselves at the expense of others. And yet, I remain hopeful because throughout this journey, I found a stronger version of myself. I found stories, I found support, I found strength. All have led me here. I may have lost my family to the storm, but we are not losing to this climate crisis. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Joanna. Words are not enough to describe what I feel right now. Uh, I was teary-eyed while listening to your story, Joanna. Uh, what happened to you after that tragic incident and the courageous decision that you have made about yourself is indeed awe-inspiring. God bless you, Joanna. Be with us until the open forum. Okay, so at this point, may I call on Miss Louie to introduce the second speaker. Louie? Louie, we cannot hear you. Please unmute yourself.
So, yeah, it's your turn now. Yeah, my videos already.
Louie?
Mhm.
Louie, we cannot hear you. You're still muted, Louie. Louie.
There, okay. I
Okay.
was unmuted by the host.
Sorry.
Sorry for that. Sorry for
Okay.
that. Okay. Yeah, just the same. I feel teary-eyed while listening to Joanna. Okay, but anyway, let's have our next speaker. Our next speaker is a jewel for both her parents and her alma mater. She is a lieutenant senior grade in the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary and is the head of the Philippine Association on Underwater Activities. She is currently taking up her master's degree in climate change and sustainable development in the National Taiwan University. A model MC alumna, she was awarded as the most outstanding volunteer and champion of the environment. And if I am not mistaken, she also belongs to the top 10 of her batch during graduation in 2019. Am I right? Friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is with pride to introduce to you Miss Mariana Reyes. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Mariana.
Oh yes. Okay. Good afternoon to everyone, and I would first like to say thank you very much for inviting me and for that very wonderful introduction. It actually, to be honest, when I was invited to speak today, I was very surprised that my name was labeled as Miriam College Alumna. And
I can't help to wonder that, oh, my graduation was 2 years ago. So I still feel it's still, the memory of graduation is still fresh in my mind. And I'm really glad to be here today to share to you my experience and what I've learned throughout staying in Miriam College and what I learned since I was a child. And this presentation is very close to my heart. So today I called my presentation Diving into Environmental Stewardship. And stewardship is defined as somewhat taking care of property. But in a biblical sense, stewardship is about taking care of God's creation. We as humans should be taking care of the wonderful creation of God. And I'd like to share with you today exactly how we can take care of God's creation and what inspired me to move towards stewardship. And I'd first like to share a little bit about myself. So, ever since I was young, I have even before I knew how to walk, actually, my parents have embedded the environmental values in me, with me and my brother, actually. So ever since I was 5 years old, I was already picking up trash in the ocean. Because my parents are very much aware of the situation happening in the coastal areas, how the fishermen fish, and how coral bleaching is happening. So we're very much aware of that. And also currently right now, I'm also teaching scuba diving. And I'm very much also aware of the situation of mass coral bleaching, ocean acidification, and how fish abundance has decreased also. So as you can see, I'm the head of the Philippine Association Underwater Activities, specifically the scientific committee. And I wanted to do more. I wanted to get more involved. So I also decided to become part of the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary, wherein I'm a lieutenant senior grade. Previously, because of my scuba diving skills, I was assigned to be in the search and recovery unit, but I then moved towards more environmental perspectives. I wanted to teach, especially the community and also my fellow officers in the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary, about coral restoration. And how can we do low-cost coral restoration in the context of the community? And after that, I'm currently right now in Taiwan in my office right now. Class, to be honest, started today. I'm taking my master's in National Taiwan University in climate change and sustainable development. And also, I've taken an active role as the Taiwan representative of the Global Masters in Development practitioners. While doing this, I'm also the Philippine representative of the national team of the Philippine Fin Swimming Federation. And as you can see, there's a picture of me there riding the waves. We call this sport hydrospeed. And what's special about this sport, it's actually used for rescue, because in harsh conditions and harsh flash floods, the rescuers need to be safe. So I decided to bring this sport to Taiwan to further train rescue teams of how we can use sports for disaster risk reduction. So knowing my background, you can see that the United Nations has also given importance to life below water, SDG 14. Why exactly? Because 70% of the air we breathe actually comes from the ocean. This is due to organisms like phytoplanktons and seaweed. And it works somewhat like photosynthesis, how we have in plants. So it's the sunlight, then will produce, then the carbon, then of course the phytoplanktons will absorb the carbon dioxide and eventually oxygen. So it's the process also of photosynthesis, almost the same. And coral reefs are actually described to be similar to the rainforest due to their high diversity. And importantly, coral reefs provides a third of or refuge for a third of marine life. And the global worth of coral reefs are estimated to be $172 billion per year. And despite all of these benefits, only 5% of the ocean has been explored. So I think that's what makes research and diving into life below water very interesting, is that there's always a huge chunk of mystery. And within the SDG 14 are also targets. So these targets are not only geared towards the top level, but also geared towards the very community level, trying to achieve sustainable fisheries rather than having mass exploitation of our natural resources. And therefore, we have to give importance to the blue economy. So the blue economy is the sustainable use of our ocean for economic growth and improved livelihoods, while keeping in mind the ecosystem. So why exactly? First of all, we have our Shopee. Our Shopee is because of the shipping vessels that are able to ship goods. So the ocean is still an important route for business. And fisheries is very important for our food and livelihood, while the ocean is also able to provide us renewable energy. And we have tourism also that generates and helps in communities. So the blue economies is really central, especially for us in the Philippines. And I want to talk about the diversity in the Philippines, how blessed we are to be located in the Coral Triangle. The Coral Triangle possesses 76% of the world's entire species. So we are definitely very blessed. And the Philippines is composed of 468 sclerotinia corals or hard corals, 736 reef fishes, 648 mollusks, and 16 species of seagrass, and of course marine algae. And for those who don't know, the Center of Marine Biodiversity is actually located in the Verde Island Passage. The Verde Island Passage has a record of closely estimated to 3,000 marine species has been recorded there. And that's really a lot. This may not sound familiar to you, or this may sound like statistics, but I have a video to show you of our last diving trip, of what the Verde Island is about and how blessed we are in the Philippines. So let me share the recording.
Mariana, are you right now showing a video?
I'm sharing the recording. Can you see it? No.
No, we're only.
Okay. Sorry. Here, this one. Share. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Make sure you turn on the audio also.
Okay. So let's see the audio. Share computer. Same as system. Switch to audio. Share microphone. Okay. Can you hear?
No audio, Mariana.
No audio. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Wait. Same as system, headphones, speakers. Okay, how about it? Does it work now?
No. Mariana, when you share, your screen at the share screen
That's the
window.
movies. You can see it.
We can see the video, but if there's an audio of that video.
Yeah, there's an audio. It says microphone, save screen, test speakers, microphone, select a speaker.
I know. Okay. You stop screen share first. Stop.
Okay,
Screen
stop screen share. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, stop. Oh,
All right.
okay, there we go.
And then share screen again.
Okay, we'll share the screen again.
Okay. And then also at the bottom, there's a computer audio.
Ah, okay, there we go. Sorry
Okay.
about that. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Thank you.
Share. Share screen. Okay, much better. Okay, I hope everyone enjoyed that video.
Yes, we did. Wow.
Okay, yes. Okay, so I wanted to show you this video because these concepts are very abstract of how many species. But as you can see, we are very blessed as a country. So because of this, I've seen the beautiful, yet I've also seen the threats to our ocean. Currently, globally, corals only occupy 0.1% of the ocean, and 70 to 90% of coral reefs can disappear by 2050. And there's a 50% loss of shallow water coral already happening in Australia, while 37% of corals have net eroded already in the Caribbean. So these are due to climate change, overfishing, sedimentation, pollution, and destructive coastal development. While in the Philippines, we also experience the same thing. 4% of the Philippines' coral reefs are found to be in excellent condition, only 4%, while live hard coral cover has decreased by 3 to 5% as compared to 1980s. And as you can see in the right-hand side, these are some tires that are found underwater when we dive. And here, the lower side, you can see, okay. Okay, sorry. Here, you can see that there is a sachet. Can you see the sachet? Yes. So there's a sachet of shampoo. And this was actually during our field work. So as you can see in the video, I brought some Taiwanese lab mates of mine to help me conduct a fieldwork in the Philippines. And they observed that there was quite a lot of trash. And it's really sad that we have a very beautiful ecosystem. They even told me that they have never seen the kind of biodiversity that we possess here in the Philippines. Yet, they also seen the ugly parts, the trash. But more than the trash, here's the decomposition timeline that we can see. So as you can find right now, it would take 450 years for the decomposition of a plastic bottle. We just drink a plastic bottle and we throw it, and we don't know the consequences that the plastic bottle does to the environment. And of course, I'm sure you've seen videos of turtles sad eating plastic because they think it's jellyfish. So we have to be very cautious of what we use and where it will go after. And I want to show you what I'm currently doing in Taiwan. I'm doing coral restoration. I've done this ever since high school. And some people are doubting, why do we do coral restoration? Because sometimes people would think that we have to first prioritize the diversity over the resilience. But why don't we take note of diversity and resilience at the same time? And people would think that maybe if we restore this species in all parts of the Philippines, it will work. But we have to think of the local context of each area. So currently my research answers the dilemma of diversity or resilience. Why don't we create a very diverse restoration project while trying to make it resilient with the recognition of local communities? And what will make coral restoration more sustainable in the future? It's actually the integration of non-government organizations, military officers, and concerned local residents for restoration of coral reefs. And to be honest, in the Philippines, in our situation, we don't have enough funding. So we have to make the technology of coral restoration as low cost as possible. So that is also why we employ the Sea Shepherd's technique to make restoration more cost efficient for local communities. And this is what I want to encourage people to do. I want to encourage people to think outside the box. What does that mean? So here I found this interesting article of how indigenous communities protect the mountainous areas because it's embedded in their belief system. Also, with us Catholics, we have the Laudato Si, the encyclical for taking care of the environment. So as Catholics, we can use this to encourage more people to protect our environment. That's why in Miriam College, we have the core values. And one of them is focusing more on the integrity of creation. Wow, I'm so happy I still remember the core values. It's really embedded in me. So during my college life, I wanted to do something to raise awareness to my fellow classmates because I wanted people to be aware and informed. And it was very challenging because we in Miriam College, we come from various fields. I originally graduated from international politics, and I had to tell my classmates of what exactly is happening to our environment. So I had to kind of discuss or communicate a lot of scientific terms. So that was very difficult for me. And another obstacle was some people wouldn't really validate your ideas. But that didn't stop me, despite people teasing me, telling me that this is very difficult, that we have no hope. I still believe we have hope. We just have to raise awareness and we have to be proactive. So that's why I was able to ask my diver friends to help me in raising awareness. In addition, because I know my parents are very supportive and that they're very much geared towards environmentalism, because the family values is what the kids will bring on until they grow old. So it's very important that that stewardship starts from young minds, and it starts from the parents. So I asked my father and my mom to join the Miriam Parent Council, because I told my parents, Mom, Dad, is it possible that both of you can join the parent council to encourage more parents and to encourage the school to take part in our coral restoration activity? And gladly, my parents are very supportive, and that we were able to go to Anilao, Batangas. And as you can see in this picture, you have the Miriam College Family Council along with some of the Miriam College colleagues of mine, like Miss Susa and of course Ate E. We currently pray for her. Ate E is there, and Miss July, and of course Moji. So it's nice to involve your whole family in environmentalism, and that's what makes it more effective. Because why do you think some of the segregation projects are failing? We segregate in school, but do we segregate at home? We have to embed environmental values, because that is what will bring outside of the home. So I was thinking, okay, I graduate college. I had my bachelor's degree, and I was thinking, what can I do better? So I decided to take a leap of faith and move to Taiwan to study my master's in international climate change and sustainable development. And my story continues in Taiwan. You can see there's a picture of another fellow Miriam alumna. Uh, that is Miss Christina. She works in education, educational leadership, also in Taiwan. So I met her in a conference about disaster risk reduction, and she was the third person in the history of Miriam to get the volunteerism award. So we were really glad to have met each other, thanks to Miss Addie. And my story continues in Taiwan. I was having a conversation with her just last week, and we saw how Taiwan manages disasters and hazards. And we were just saying, sana all meron. Sana all, in the sense that we can encourage more officials to really invest in disaster risk reduction and adaptation measures. So in this 4-day, 3-night workshop, we learned how to use ArcGIS. We learned how to simulate disasters, and we really give importance of how Taiwan is able to mitigate and adapt to disasters. So it's something that we really want to teach when we come back to the Philippines, because we are very vulnerable to disasters. Our exposure is very high. So exactly why am I in Taiwan? Because Taiwan is a leading country in sustainable development. They give priority to sustainable development even despite their very complex position in the international community. But that doesn't stop them. Taiwan also ranks high when it comes to the high impact rankings of universities in the world. So it's how universities integrate sustainable development within their campus. Here in National Taiwan University, there's a lot of solar energy being harvested because we want to encourage renewable energy and prevent fossil fuels. Also, environmental education is really given a priority here in Taiwan. Even during their high school, junior high or senior high, they take units in college about geosciences or climate change. But then I feel like it's adequate. But then if you talk to my Taiwanese colleagues, they would say, no, we need more. For someone in the Philippines, that's already really great to have environmental education. But I love their aggressive stance to get more units of environmental education, which is very important. They really embed climate change in every field and aspect. For instance, in civil engineering, we would think it's more of construction building, but they would think of ways to innovate potable water for communities who who need clean, safe drinking water. Also, I learned here in Taiwan that specialties are important, but we have to integrate various disciplines to solve complex challenges. For instance, coral restoration can't just be about the theoretical part of science. We have to integrate and communicate with communities to make it more sustainable. Because the scientists, after the research is done, they'll just go back to the laboratory. But we need citizen science to be able to continue what the scientists have started. That is why I want to highlight what I learned in Taiwan. For instance, one, we have the circular economy. The circular economy is very important because when you exploit the materials, you process them, and then after you use them, you throw them. But here in Taiwan, they find ways and technologies of how you can prevent and lessen waste to make it more renewable. Then you have the sustainable development goals. And importantly, you have citizen science and the integration of community in all aspects. And importantly, it's only in Taiwan, but it's only in Taiwan that you may think that after you graduate your bachelor's degree, mathematics is over. No, there's more math where that came from. So right now I'm also doing model science to learn more and to identify key species that are essential for coral restoration. That is why data science is very important also in integrating to the study of environmental research. And what have I learned and what are my accomplishments and fulfillments? So firstly, I mentioned earlier in my introduction that I'm the representative to the Masters in Development practitioners in Taiwan. I'm actually one of the first Filipinos to represent Taiwan. It may sound very confusing that a Filipino is representing Taiwan, but because of my international studies background, thanks to, of course, my notable professors, Dr. Banlawi, Dr. Attorney Menyoza, and Dr. Lowenson, I learned more of how I can help in Taiwan's recognition in the international community, especially in the field of sustainable development. So right now, I'm happy to report that more people are now recognizing how Taiwan is able to mitigate and manage COVID-19. And that is actually the highlight of how I was able to represent Taiwan in a very good light, and that we're very much into sustainable development goals and environmental education. Also, right now, my fieldwork is almost finished in developing a low-cost restoration research that involves the context of the community. Because let's say one key species can't fit another key species in, let's say, Cebu to Anilao. So my coral restoration project, I want to formalize it to make sure that that we in the Philippines would also be recognized. And I'm currently also doing the data analyzing for this. So I'm very much happy to have done the field work in the Philippines and to have finished thanks to the advice from my seniors and my laboratory mates, and of course the scientists from the Philippines. And also another fulfillment is I was able to meet new people and share and exchange knowledge. Here in Taiwan, we come from various fields. Me, I studied international studies in Miriam. My classmates, they're engineers, scientists, and they're also economists. But we managed to find a common ground and share and exchange our ideas on disaster risk reduction, on the circular economy, on international politics. And this is very important because we can't be confined in our own boxes. We have to think outside of the box. And thinking outside the box is very important. So there's pictures of me and my classmates. For me, I would exchange knowledge of scuba diving so that they're more aware of the marine life in Taiwan, because Taiwan also possesses abundance of marine life. Also, there's pictures of us doing experiments in the park that that we were able to measure air quality within the campus. Then my goals right now is the road towards the sustainable development that empowers less vulnerable communities to mobilize them to sustainable development while also encouraging officials to move towards sustainable development. Also, I want to contribute new learnings to enhance environmental awareness and conservation while keeping in mind sustainable development also at the international community. Why is it important to also raise awareness to our officials? Well, currently, as you may know, I heard in the Philippines, we don't want incidents like putting white sand in Manila Bay to happen. So education is very important. Before action, education, I can't highlight enough that awareness to our environment is important. If not, we'll end up putting white sand in Manila Bay, or we'll end up putting chlorine in the ocean. So my goal right now is to raise awareness in the Philippines to move towards sustainable development. And I'd like to end my presentation saying, why keep your head above water if you can dive 100 feet deeper? Because people would say, keep your head above water in each problem or situation. But I mean, we have to dive deeper. And diving deeper allows us to solve root problems and not only patch them up or band-aid them. So thank you very much for inviting me. And I hope to see you and I hope to travel back to the Philippines. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mariana. You were truly amazing, Mariana. Continue to make Miriam College proud. A lot of Miriam College students are here with us now, and I'm so sure that you've inspired them. And I hope that more will follow your footsteps. And you might want to consider teaching in Miriam after your MA, Mariana.
Oh my gosh, I would love to teach in Miriam, especially young minds.
Okay, so at this point, we are opening the floor for questions, but allow us first to give you some instructions. Leah?
Okay, so for our question and answer, here are some reminders or instructions. Raise your hand to indicate that you want to ask a question. So that's in the participants window. Your intent will be noted by the moderators and you will be able to speak during your turn. Please remember to introduce yourself and your organizational affiliation. You may also want to write your questions on the chat box. Type it there. To maximize our time, please keep your questions concise and direct to the point. So we open the floor now for question and answer.
Okay, Leah, before we entertain questions, we also would like to seek the participation of our friends here in the evaluation of this webinar. And we will post later in the chat box the link to the Google form. And for the students who are here, specifically students of GEE 1, that's, what is that? Nature, Culture, and Spirituality, the link will be posted in your Google Classrooms. Okay, so let's now check. Who would like to ask first? You can also share your insights. Anyone? I'd like to ask Joanna. Hi, Joanna.
Hello.
You are involved in the advocacy work of Greenpeace. uh, I'm so sure that you have youth groups within Greenpeace. Would you like to tell us something about that?
Yes, we're actually in the past, Greenpeace has always been very active in partnering with youth organizations. So right now, since the pandemic has started, I'm actually in charge of youth engagement, and we always make it a point where we bring in youth organizations with different advocacies, and you collaborate with them. It could be in forms of events, or even providing um, trainings to facilitation or basic ecology, um, or non-violence trainings, something like that. So we are actually cooking something up right now for the global climate strikes. It's going to happen this month on September. So I do hope that with the youth, with especially the students that are here with us today in this webinar, you can also participate in the different events initiated by the existing youth organizations. Yeah, we really need to co-power the youth of today, because sabi nga, 'di ba, yung kabataan naman ang pag-asa ng bayan. So we need to create more platforms for the youth to be involved, for the youth to have their chance to create, to make decisions, for them to be able to create the society that they want for themselves and for the future generation.
Yeah. Mhm. Thank you, Joanna. Leah, there's a question. Will you please read?
There's a question. Wait, okay, the question is from Soda. Soda, would you like to just turn on your mic and your camera? Hello, Soda.
Soda is the advocacy officer of the Center for Peace Education of Miriam College.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll just read. Okay. My question is, Soda's asking, okay, Soda's question. My question is addressed to both speakers. Given that we are under the pandemic and our movements are constrained, how can we help contribute in the cause in advancing for climate justice?
Do you want me to go first?
Yes,
Okay.
Joanna.
So yeah, marami talaga yung nagbago, no, when the pandemic started, and we really needed to find ways to position ourselves and how we can respond to this pandemic. So as youth, there are so many ways where we can get involved para maisulong yung climate justice. First is, of course, let's take advantage of the online lessons that we get from webinars. Let's educate ourselves. And second is, of course, register yourselves para makaboto tayo sa next elections, because we need strong leaders who are very much aligned with our environmental advocacies, na yung uunahin na isipin is yung kabutihan para sa lahat, instead of just a few powerful corporations or governments. Next is find your own community. You can join a youth organization, or any organization that is advocating for climate and the environment. find your own community, and be inspired by their strength, and um, learn from each other. Kasi yun talaga, we cannot do things alone. We need a strong support system, a movement. We need to be part of a movement para collectively yung actions natin mas maging stronger.
Would you like to add, Mariana? Thank you.
Hello, yes. Sorry. Hello. Yeah, sorry, my colleagues are there in the back. During the time of pandemic, I also gave a seminar about this the other time. Especially in the aspect, I would really stress a lot of environmental awareness and trying to think outside the box, because the pandemic has changed us so much. In Taiwan, I'm very fortunate to be here that we're still able to do our fieldwork in scuba diving. We're still able to do our experiments. But in the situation in the Philippines, it's quite difficult, quite really difficult and really different. So I really highly recommend to raise environmental awareness. And while educating ourselves, like right now, we are in a seminar right now. That's really a great step. Right now, we raise environmental awareness, we educate ourselves, especially there are a lot of good documentaries. The documentary of the century, Chasing Corals. But when I was young, I really enjoyed BBC Blue Planet, Blue World. It's really nice. And while we are educating ourselves, we think outside the box. We think of possibilities of how to integrate conservation in things that we do. We do responsible consumption of our resources. Like we have to segregate our trash. Here in Taiwan, they won't collect your trash until it's segregated, and we have to train our children how to segregate trash, the waste, and that's very important. We have to lessen our waste while we're indoors. Like panay yung Uber Eats natin, panay ang Food Panda natin. Pero where does our Uber Eat containers go after? We have to think about that. And concerning the plastic bottles, I have a colleague right now with me in the same office. Very fortunate to have various colleagues here. He's working also in plastics, and the perspective of decomposition, maybe the proper term that I would use is unable to disintegrate instead of decomposition, because in our whole lifetime we will never witness the bottle to not disintegrate or decompose. So thank you very much for pointing that out, Miss Doc Louie, for that. Thank you very much. That's also a benefit of having very good colleagues in the back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yana. That's a very practical question. Also, where does your Grab Food or Uber Eats containers go?
Exactly.
Leia,
Yes, sir.
nice, Miss Emma Soriano. She would like to ask
Yes.
a question. Be sure to unmute the mic of Miss Emma Soriano.
Yes, it's already. She can already unmute.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Emma.
Oh, okay, great. First, I want to say thank you for entertaining my question, and I meant about to entertain my question, and for sharing your stories. I think that they're so great that we're having this seminar, and yes. And so my question, I'm sorry. I know that when it comes to climate change, we always talk about plastic, and of course, it is one of the problems, pollution. But one thing that actually, just a quick story, I guess. During this quarantine, I've been really educating myself, like just through research, and I found out that methane, due to livestock and cows, are actually one of also the greatest contributors to climate change. And I just really want to know, what are your views on that? And not a lot of people, I guess, here in the Philippines we always eat pork, we always eat cows, and I'm not trying to get everyone to become vegan or anything, but I guess it's just one of the things that I guess we need to raise more awareness on, and how our diet also contributes to climate change. So I just want to know, what are your views about that and the culture that we have here in the Philippines and our diets? Thank you.
Can I answer first? I really like this question.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, it is true. The livestock industry does have a giant impact on our carbon emissions because, as you know, they're cutting down the rainforest to give way to the feeds of the animals. Yes, that is true. That's why one of the solutions here in Taiwan, honestly, is that they make vegetables cheaper. Like if you're really broke like me, if you really don't have anything to eat, you go to the cafeteria and you get vegetarian buffet, and the vegetarian buffet would be like 60 pesos. So it's a matter of being responsible with our consumption and trying to really encourage more people to 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 choose not only the healthy option but also the more responsible option. So because in the Philippines, veganism, it's getting up there, but it's not as integrated into our lives. It's still a trend, but it has to be a lifestyle. And because in the Philippines we're honestly carnivorous eaters, but we have to make the change to to better substitutes. So because here in Taiwan it's easier, relatively easier to be vegetarian because it's available everywhere, and in each restaurant there is a vegetarian option. Also because of their belief of Buddhism is also important. um that is why we have to encourage more people to get involved with being responsible about their diet. And and it's very and honestly, this is also climate communication. It's very hard to tell people in a very broad sense, and trying to tell the simple people exactly of how does our eating habits contribute. And I think that's the challenge for scientists or for climate communicators, to bridge the gap between science and to bridge the gap in application. And that is still what we're trying to figure out here in university, and also as climate advocates we're trying to still figure that out. But it's really good that you started educating yourselves in the consumption. Here in Taiwan, beef is more expensive, so I'm quite forced, not really forced, but I'm really more encouraged to eat vegetables more, because the prices of meat is a bit more expensive than the prices of vegetables. So that's one way of encouraging people. If you give them lesser of an option to move, and you give them less options and move towards more sustainable options. And anything that my colleague Joanna would like to add to that? Thank you very much.
I thank you so much. I totally agree with Mariana. And yes, totoo talaga na a huge percent of carbon emissions ay galing sa ating food and agriculture. Basically, when you eat a 4-cheese Whopper, yes, nakakagutom siya, 'di ba? But we should think na yung beef na ginamit doon, it's actually from the Amazon rainforest. And these corporations, they intentionally burn the Amazon rainforest para magkaroon ng paglalagyan yung cattle. They turn it into cattle farms, and they also turn other lands into soy farms. And these farms aren't feeding the people. They feed cattle. When these and more importantly, when forests are burned, our indigenous peoples lose homes. So napakalaking it's layers and layers of injustices na kaakalain mo yun just because of of a burger, let's say, marami ng um, ecological imbalance ang nangyayari. And that's why also with Greenpeace, we also have a food and agriculture campaign wherein we campaign for communities to eat less meat but more vegetables. Pero of course, we also need to make sure that these vegetables, the food that we serve on our plates are ecologically sourced. So hindi organic ito, hindi siya binuhusan ng kung ano-anong chemicals kasi our health is also at stake. More importantly, policy integration. Yun talaga. Our personal lifestyle changes need to be coupled with policy integration. Because when our governments integrate the environmental awareness sa policies natin, mas nagiging effective yung ginagawa nating change sa ating lifestyles. So yeah.
Thank you, Joanna. I'd like to recognize Sister Anne. Sister Anne, the floor is yours. Hi, Sister Anne. You can ask your question now. You're still muted. Leia, can she unmute herself? Sister Anne?
Yes, okay. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you, sister.
Can you hear us? Can you, I have unmuted already myself.
Yes,
Yes,
we can
sister.
hear you.
Okay, you can see us, but is there sound audio?
Yes, there is a sound.
Okay, this sister Agustini Bernal. My co-sister wants to ask a question. Hello.
Go ahead.
When I was young, I used to buy the corals, beautiful corals for decor. Now, watching the video, and I was surprised that it was so difficult to get one. So my question is, what other uses or advantages can we get in preserving the beautiful corals underwater?
I think the question is directed towards me, I guess. So the corals, as you know, they're live animals, and besides the very aesthetic of corals, they actually have a function in being the refuge for marine life. So a third of marine species actually rely on coral reefs, and that corals also contribute because they are able to absorb carbon dioxide. And apart from corals, of course, the phytoplanktons and the seaweed, they act out like a carbon sink. The ocean itself, everything in the ocean is very important to act as a carbon sink. And the ocean is just taking in too much carbon. So if we increase marine life, such as the corals, the phytoplanktons, the seaweeds, we can the carbon sink wouldn't the ocean wouldn't acidify as much, because right now marine life is taking in too much carbon emission. So the use of marine life in general, not only the corals, is to act as a carbon sink. The ocean acts as a carbon sink, and it's just taking in too much. So other than the aesthetic, of course, we have without corals, there wouldn't be the fishes, and the fishes are important. The fishes, the other marine life, the mollusk, and all of these marine organisms are important in an ecological value. And furthermore, the Philippines also relies on tourism, especially that we are known as a top dive site in the whole world. So there are communities and resorts that rely on tourism as their major livelihood. So it's very important. Also, may I add that since I'm so honored to see the Maryknoll nuns, and I I've also met a lot of Maryknoll nuns in my time in Miriam, so I'm very fortunate to have seen them today. Religion also plays a part in conservation of coral reefs, because right now I'm working on another mini research about how religious artifacts such as the Santo Niño or the Virgin Mary help in shaping conservation. So basically, there's a group of marine biology scuba diving priests in Bohol. They place the religious figures underwater in the Danahon Bank, which is a double barrier reef. And they could see that there has been an improvement of less dynamite fishing in the Philippines, in Bohol, due to the placement of religious artifacts underwater. The religious figures help in preventing fishermen from blast fishing. So I really want to see the integration of religion and how it can help in conservation, because again, we are stewards of God's creation. And thank you very much to the Maryknoll sisters over there. Thank you.
Sister Anne, may I know your religious congregation? I think Sister Anne is not from the Maryknoll congregation.
So we are SFIC, Franciscan Sisters of the
Okay.
Immaculate Conception, affiliated with St.
Immaculate
Joseph's
Conception.
College, but we are now based in Baguio City.
Oh,
Wow.
Baguio.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah,
Nice to meet all of you, sister. Nice to meet all of you.
Yeah, the community, the Maryknoll community here in Baguio invited us to join this Zoom meeting.
Yes.
Seminar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
The speakers are very good.
thank you for
Thank
being
you. Thank you.
Okay, there's another question from MC Novali. Julian, would you like to ask your question now, Julian?
Hello po.
Hi.
Yes po. I would just like to ask, did the global response to the pandemic affect the environment for better or for worse? Yun po.
Okay. Joanna, are you still there?
By the way, we have educators for the environment with us right now. You can also share your insights. I mean, you're welcome to share your insights. Okay. Joanna or Mariana or anyone.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, right now, my colleagues in the back are very much attentive of what I'm doing and listening. And we find that your question is very interesting also.
They can answer if they want.
Also answer.
Other environmentalists can answer. Anyway, we also have the same question also in university of what exactly is happening in the pandemic. Some people would debate actually that it's been better. It balances the earth. Like we call this term ecological terrorists. Ecological terrorists believe that if we eliminate humans, the earth will be better. And some people believe that because of the pandemic, lesser people have been exploiting our resources and that the abundance of species are able to return. But others believe that carbon emissions haven't really decreased as much because, again, we're inside our house using the electricity of our houses, where we're using more plastics when we deliver our Uber Eats or our Grab Food or our Food Panda. And it's just increasing the usage of plastic. When we drink our milk tea, we can't order outside, so we just ask the people to bring it via plastic or something, or that we use more transportation when we have to move. So it's a matter of perspective. In the sense of marine, because my parents are actually also in Batangas, and that there's an ordinance enforced by the mayor to prevent scuba diving or to prevent any marine related activities for now during the pandemic. So the abundance of organisms have returned. However, if you put it in the city setting, if you put it in the urban setting, what happened? A lot of Uber Eats happen and a lot of Food Panda happen, and not everyone will do responsible consumption. Like when we go to the restaurant, we have an option to dine in or dine out. When we dine in, we don't really necessarily need plastic spoons or forks. But when we deliver out, it creates more waste. So it's a matter of the context or perspective if it did become better or worse. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Hi.
Okay.
Yes, Joanna. Okay.
Sorry, I just need, I hope it's okay. I just need to turn off my video because my internet's a bit spotty. So if I may answer, whether the global response to the pandemic affect the environment for better or for worse, no. It it affect it affected the environment worse actually, because like what Mariana mentioned, with the response to the pandemic, all of us, we need to wear masks or face shields, for example. What are these things made of? Most of these things that are available to a lot of people are disposables. So problema din yon, yung pag-dispose. We don't really have an effective waste management. These are also, these face masks or face shield need to be disposed of properly because these are hazardous wastes or medical wastes. So definitely negative tayo doon. And I think to say that naging maganda yung environment because of the pandemic, because there's less exploitation of resources, I'm not sure if that's actually correct, because personally from where I'm from in Leyte or in Samar, that's also in Region 8, mining companies are still business as usual. Meron pa ring mga dumarating na mga vessels that do chromite mining. And of course, that's also putting the community at risk, environmentally, and of course, in a physical medical sense. Also to say that the environment became healthier is not accurate, because first and foremost, humans are part of the environment. And if you wipe out humans, meron ding imbalance sa biodiversity. Merong imbalance sa environment. And we cannot say that the pandemic is the solution to environmental problems, or let's say climate change, because that's being borderline environmental fascists. Kasi alam naman nating lahat that yes, humans are responsible. In general, humans are responsible for polluting our communities, our environment. But we cannot deny the fact that there are only a few corporations, a few powerful corporations, who are responsible for the lion's share of the pollution of our environment. So parang it's an I think it's an insensitive remark to say that parang mabuting nagka-pandemic because the air is cleaner. I mean, at the expense of so many people who died, I don't think that's justifiable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joanna. Right now, it's already 3:55, and we have the following who still would like to ask questions. Danielle, David, Vanessa, Sister Teresa, Sir Mats, and Miss Dini. We will still entertain your questions, and perhaps there's no need for the two of our speakers to answer. Unahan na lang. Okay, let's begin with Danielle. Or would you like us to just read your questions? Because in a way, your questions are written on the chat box. Leah, will you please help me read the questions? Let's start with Danielle. Leah?
Okay. Wait, Daniel. I'm from MCN. And how do you think environmental justice can
enter supply and demand without sacrificing profitability? How do you think environmental justice can enter supply and demand without sacrificing profitability?
Joanna?
Okay, I'll try to answer this. First, never ignore the science. The science is there because these are facts. And of course, lahat naman ng mga proyekto na ginagawa natin, these should be based on scientific research. And along with the scientific research is the environmental impacts of a project or any proposal. Next is apart from the science, of course, we need to consider the community, the heart on where this project would be would stand. Yung sinasabi kasi na I think most of the environmental injustices that we are facing, it's very profit driven. And so when we say it's profit driven, nauuna talaga ang profit kesa sa kabutihan ng mga tao na nakapaligid dun sa komunidad. We need to remember that the decisions that we make today has a long-lasting impact na hindi lang yung generation natin yung magsasuffer. Gaya ng climate change. When the Industrial Revolution started, the fossil fuel industry already knew, based on their research, that this is going to happen years later. Na itong klaseng klima yung mararanasan natin. But they ignored the science. They actually tried to cover it up. So sino yung nagsasuffer ngayon? Yes, progress or developments were made. Napakalaki na, 'di ba, ng pinagkaiba from years ago and now. But when we look back, was it really worth it?
Okay. I don't hear Joanna anymore. I think she's done, or
Yes.
she got connected. Okay. Can we proceed to the next question? Leah, please read.
From Is it from Vanessa, sir?
No, from David Mendoza.
David. Sir, sorry, I cannot see it on my chat box.
So here's the question. Hi, I'm David from Miriam College. Just a minute. Miriam College, Nuvali. My question is for both speakers. What would you say to other young people, including myself, who feel that they don't really have a voice or a way to create change? I got some inspiration after hearing about Greta Thunberg, who is a climate activist, and I decided to create posters and placards about climate change so that I can show support to fight for the climate. Okay, short answer from Joanna and Mariana.
Okay, short answer is continue what you're doing. It's a matter of introspection. What I always say is you need to ask yourself, what am I good at? Second is, what am I willing to learn? And third is, what am I willing to sacrifice? If you're able to answer those three questions and continue to educate yourself about what's going on, with your own community, with our environment, um, just I think you'll be able to find your purpose, and you'll be able to uh, find your own means of involving yourself. You don't need to be a good speaker, or you don't need to go on protests. If what you said, like you're creating posters, that's already your way of getting yourself involved with activism. That's actually artivism, art with activism. So yeah, just find your niche and continue doing it, not only for yourself, but of course for the people around you and for the next generation.
Okay.
Maybe to add to that quite a bit, people honestly will try to silence you or tease you. But whatever you do, as long as you can stand by it, never back down. Because when they back down and they see you back down, they have already won. But don't at all let them win. To be honest, it's really hard to convince people who don't believe in climate change. But we never give up, right? We always stand our ground. And that's very important. In Miriam, to be honest, it was a bit difficult to try to raise awareness because we're from different perspectives and it's hard to share. But you start with one person, and and the first person that you talk to and you tell them, it's a win situation already, because from that one person that you convince, it will go a long way. So just just continue what you're doing. I agree with Joanna. Definitely, you're already making a big change. And as part of the youth, we have to continue, because sooner or later, it will be us who will be the future leaders. And it would be nice that our leader has a very environmental mindset. So just keep on doing what you do and love to do what you do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joanna and Mariana. As I've said, we will still entertain the questions of Vanessa, Sister Teresa, Sir Mats, and Miss Dean Hernandez. So at this point, Leah, would you like to read the question of Vanessa Garcia?
Okay. Vanessa said, okay, here. She is from BS Environmental Planning and MEP.org. There have been current efforts in reducing single-use plastics. However, it isn't enough to fully eradicate plastic and manage waste. Ms. Mariana mentioned the importance of the circular economy. Is it circular economy a while ago? And Ms. Joanna also just mentioned the importance of policy implementation to ensure that the community is practicing a sustainable lifestyle. Do you think that the Philippines can achieve a circular economy? And what are the steps that we should take to achieve it, such as waste management, etc.? Anyone? Any of the two?
I think I can go first. So, uh, I think it's possible that we can that we can achieve circular economy, but it takes a lot of steps. Even Taiwan, they haven't perfected the circular economy yet, and what more us. But we're very hopeful because now we have science, we have technologies that are able to make technologies, the waste, to circulate them again for reusable management of the waste and waste management, and so that we prevent more further exploitation of our resources. So, with this in mind, this is what I also asked to some of my circular economy specialist colleagues of mine, because it's very expensive. We have the technology right now, but the challenge is it's very expensive. But the thing is, it's possible if we make it cheaper. How do we make it cheaper? We highlight on technology that is able to make it cheaper and convince more corporations from the top to invest in this. It's even possible to make it cheaper than exploiting raw materials, but we have to tell them why is it exactly cheaper than trying to harvest from raw materials. So right now it's a matter of trying to get corporations on board, moving from traditional kind of methods of exploiting raw materials to now more technology based and more factual based ways of trying to recycle these materials so that we don't have to keep exploiting these resources. And the circular economy really is very important right now. And I hope sooner or later, of course, but I hope, Vanessa, sooner or later you'll be able to even contribute to the Philippines of how we can make technology, sorry, how we can make technology more approachable, especially to more vulnerable populations. I'm sure Joanna would like to add to that. Thank you.
Joanna?
Okay. Probably Joanna can answer that later. Can we call on now Sister Teresa to ask her question? Sister, I know it's 4 o'clock in the morning there in New York, and you're still awake. Are you? Sister? Okay, we'll give the floor to Sister Teresa, but let's just entertain first Miss Dean Hernandez. Ma'am?
Good afternoon, Carlo. I'm Dean Hernandez. I like to pose the question towards all of you, because a long time ago, during the time of President Arroyo, I was part of the SWARM, the Solid Management movement or program under Malacanang. And I just searched the internet now. Is under Simatu, is there an equivalent of SWARM today? Because I love the way our resource speakers are so young and so passionate about the thing. But when I was in charge of public markets, Jaime Augusto Sobel, my boss, was in charge of commercial buildings. I just want to know whether there is an updated version of the SWARM program many years ago when I was part of the public markets section of solid waste management.
Anyone here who can answer?
Okay, if no one can answer, then I suggest Carlo, Miriam, and Environmental Science Institute try to renew. When I was looking at the webpage, Senator Pia Cayetano was one of the champions, and since she's still a senator, maybe we can get her to revive or recycle what was solid waste management then, because the way we were structured, we had Jaime Augusto Sobel in charge of all the commercial buildings in the land. And I was supposed to orchestrate the movement of solid waste management in the public markets. But that was a long time ago.
Okay,
So I leave it up to Miriam,
yeah.
your aegis and guidance, Carlo, as the ESI head, to
Okay.
try to renew that, because our two speakers have made inroads in Taiwan and in all around the world. But what about here? Who's manning the shop to try to advance everything that they have been doing? It's such a pity that young Filipinos have to champion Greenpeace and the cause for the earth, and then we're not really organized here in the country. So that's my input. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Miss Dean. We'll consider that. We'll take that suggestion seriously. Okay, at this point, may I call on Sister Teresa? She's now back. Sister Teresa. We have earlier we have 10 galleries, and I don't know where Sister Teresa is. Leia, will you please check if she is muted?
She's here. Wait. Okay. She's unmuted already. Sister?
Okay. Sister, proceed. And then next we will read the question of Sir Mats. By the way, while we're waiting for Sister Teresa, please read the sharing of insights of Dr. Paris Parayno, Dr. Jerry Jurisprudencia, Micah, Louis, and Eden. They write their sharing of insights in the chat box.
Sister, you're on already. Your mic is unmuted. So please go on.
We'll go back to you, Sister. Leia, will you please read the question of Sir Mats? Okay, here's the question. Aside from dolomite being dumped into Manila Bay, isn't it that we should also be concerned where this dolomite was mined? That's Alcoy town in Cebu. Anyone from the Environment Department of Miriam College who would like to answer this question? There is actually an ongoing debate about this issue.
Okay.
Okay, Louis, please.
Okay. I would just like to answer that because that's related to what Joanna shared a while ago regarding the deforestation of the Amazon forest, wherein um, just to give way to the cattle to be made into burgers so that a lot of people can enjoy burgers. They displaced indigenous people, so just the same, no, where we get the resources that we use here in the city, we also have to be concerned about them because they are the ones really suffering, no, from our overconsumption.
Okay, thank you, Louis. Can we go back to Sister Teresa? You know, New York is too far. That's why we cannot hear her.
Yes, sir. Okay, sister just turned on her camera. Can you
Okay,
see
sister.
her? Wait.
After
Yes,
sister.
there.
Okay, there. Go ahead, sister.
Sister, we still cannot hear you.
Sister, we cannot hear you, sister.
The voice waves from New York is still traveling. Na-traffic ata.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Problem.
Kasi sounds travel slower than light.
Check your audio settings, sister.
Earlier, Sister Teresa wrote in the chat box that she would like to partner with Joanna and Mariana. And well, what she meant was she would like the Maryknoll Ecological Sanctuary to partner with Joanna and Mariana. So she wrote that earlier in the chat box. Seems a lot were inspired by the dedication and commitment of our two young environmental champions. Sister, we're waiting. Hindi ka pa natutulog. Eric has a question to Mariana, and I think this is the last question. But Mariana can answer this, of course, later after Sister Teresa.
Mariana and Joanna just sent their email addresses. So if you have questions, you may email them.
Okay, so Eric, please just direct your question to Mariana using her email address. So it's going to be Sister Teresa who will be asking the last question. Sister, we're waiting. Try again. For the information of the people here, Sister Teresa is a Maryknoll sister, and she's right now in New York. But she's the president of the Maryknoll Ecological Sanctuary in Baguio. She is also helping Miriam College in various ways.
May I suggest, sir, that sister, if it's all right with you, you may email me or email the two speakers if it's okay.
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 Okay, sister.
Okay, sister. Thank you.
So sorry about
Again,
that,
sister.
sister.
I met sister before. She was actually the first Maryknoll sister I've met in Miriam College.
Wow.
I'm so glad to meet sister again. Nice to see you,
Yes.
Sister Teresa.
Okay, sister, we will ensure that Joanna and Mariana will have a direct connection with the Maryknoll Ecological Sanctuary. We will invite these two to Baguio. Okay, sige. So we can now proceed. Leia?
Yes. So Thank you to all of you who joined this webinar. So overwhelming also to have 200 plus people here. Please do not leave yet. We will have a photo op after the closing remarks. Sir?
Okay, so to give the closing remarks, may I call on now the OIC of the Maryknoll Ecological Sanctuary in Baguio, Ms. Mita Di Malanta. Mita, please proceed.
Yes, hello, everyone. I would like to thank everyone for joining the webinar. And I am so struck by the passion, the dedication of our youthful speakers. Joanna reminds me of someone who said, out of great pain comes great art. So out of her pain and out of the loss of the lives of her most dearly beloved family members, she rose like a phoenix, and she used that experience to actually do more good for the earth and for everyone. She is a shining example of what all of us would really aspire to be, and to take on the cudgels for climate change, given her painful experience, which she transformed into something beautiful. So in the season of creation, from something that she experienced, she created a beautiful experience of saving the earth in doing her climate justice work globally. As for Mariana, Mariana has invited us to do a deep dive, and she has not only brought us down into the depths of the sea, but she has told us that it is up to us to really do something about the environment. She cites all the in Taiwan, and if I may share, Taiwan was called the garbage island 26 years ago. We have relatives in Taiwan, and the collection of garbage was only 70% then. But now Taiwan has the highest rates of recycling. They can recycle up to 55% of their waste, and 77% of their industrial waste, that they don't have enough trash to put into their incinerators. They have cleaned up Taiwan so well, and the model is so good. And from the two brave women who espouse the values of Miriam College of Maryknoll, which are truth, justice, integrity of creation, we thank you for sharing, for your stories of hope, your stories of hope, your stories of love. And I am reminded of one teacher who told me, to be able to make a change in the world, that's what both of you are doing. Both of you just did, number one, whatever you knew, you just linked it up with something that resonates with you. And I invite everyone to do that. Number two, you related it with everything, like everything that would really mean so much to you. And with that relationship, you're able to love what you do, love yourself, love your family, and network. Therefore, we go through the citizen science, because again, as Joanna and Mariana have said, it is up to us to make this world a better place, and to live Laudato Si, and to live so that everyone in the world will have a better world. Thank you for inviting us, Miriam College, the Environmental Sciences Institute, and to collaborate with this. This is a collaboration, and we are so happy to be part of this collaboration. We are parts that can only be united with our love for God. As we glorify God, our Creator, and take care of creation, we live Laudato Si in the season of creation. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
Mita,
you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Mita.
Mita forgot to announce that there's going to be another webinar on Wednesday, and this one is organized by the Maryknoll Ecological Sanctuary. If I may announce the details, the title is State of Nature Assessment and Journey to Sustainability. The speaker is Dr. Angelina Galang. It will be at 9 o'clock via Zoom. Details are posted on ESI FB page and MES, that's Maryknoll Ecological Sanctuary FB page. So see you on Wednesday. So Leia, let's have a photo op now.
Yes, can everyone please turn on their cameras? Okay.
So we have 9 galleries. Earlier we have 10.
Okay.
What's going to do?
Yes. Okay, so we have 9 galleries. Okay, I'm starting for a while. Okay. Ready? 1. Wait. Oh, wait. Smile, please. Okay. Just waiting for some. Okay. Next. Okay. Loading. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Another one. Smile. Another one. Smile. One more. More cameras, please. Turn on. I'm waiting for some people. Turn on your cameras. All right. Smile. Okay. More people. Okay, please wait. 3 more. Okay. Finished.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this afternoon, and thank you for joining us, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So sorry, we went beyond the time. Sorry for that. So okay, so we have to close now.
Yes.
See you again on Wednesday for another webinar and another in October. And thank you to all the Miriam College students who were here. Some schools were also present. De La Salle University, Lipa. Hi. Okay, so bye-bye now. Bye.
Bye. Please check out the evaluation form on the chat box.
Yes, evaluate.
Bye.
To help us evaluate this webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Nice to see everyone. Nice to see the
Yes,
Miriam.
Mariana
Bye.
and Joanna.
Mariana and Joanna.
Thank
Joanna's
you.
still there?
Yes,
hi,
hi.
Joanna. Nice to meet you, Joanna.
Nice to meet you too. It was an honor speaking alongside you.
It's really, I've actually, me and my Taiwanese colleagues in the room are listening to your seminar. They know the devastation of Typhoon Haiyan, and they're also really inspired with your story. So it's really
Thank
nice
you.
to have heard of that, and it's a story of hope and optimism. Thank you very much.
Salamat. Maraming salamat.
Salamat
Ingat
talaga.
ka dyan.
Kayo din po. Ingat po. Maayong puntad sa iyong kanan. Salamat.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Yes.
Salamat.
Is it all right? Just one more photo op with just the organizers and Joanna and Mariana.
Oh.
Just one.
Okay.
I'll just
Sure, sige
photo
po.
op. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Smile. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll keep in touch, Joanna and Mariana.
Yes, please.
So,
yes,
yes.
please.
Keep in touch. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Ingat po kayo lahat. Salamat.
Okay, bye-bye.
Sige, Doc Carlo. Doc Carlo, see you in Taiwan.
Yes, but
Sama ako doon.
Sama tayong lahat.
Kasama tayo sa...
Sir Carl. Hello?
Kasama tayo sa climate pilgrimage.
Oh, yeah. Sounds great. Sounds great.
Sinabi natin kay Joanna. Oo nga. Sister TV,
Everyone
can you try again?
Yeah, sure.
Baka.
Hi!
Oh my God! Sister!
Oh, hi, sister!
Pwede na? Pwede na?
Yes!
Okay. Pwede na? Pahabol.
Kay Mariana na lang po.
Mariana, ikaw ba nag-meet tayo dun sa isang vocation, ano?
Yes po.
Ikaw yun, sabi niyo, ay nako, gusto kitang hawakan kasi ikaw yung first Maryknoll sister na nakakita ko. Yes po,
sister, ako po yan. Kasi first time po ako makamit ng Maryknoll sister. You're the first Maryknoll sister